Hey, howdy heckin' hello, H2Os, Roller Bros, and Lolo Shep herds alike. I'm your guide at Q. Welcome back to some juicy Nice Girls stories. These are pretty spicy. I mean, like, I don't know, the Nice Girls are always kind of crazy, but there's some serious, like, life-changing encounters in this video, so let's just get into the stories. This story comes to us from James from the submissions email. He said he didn't want to be anonymous, but I'm also not sure if he wanted his last name out there, so just James. So this story goes all the way back to the Stone Age. The year was 2017, and I was a young man in my hoe phase. I would chat up girls online and have text-only flirtationships, sometimes developing into lasting friendships, but more often than not just fading away as we both grew bored and moved on. Most of the people I met were perfectly happy with this arrangement. Let me just say right now that I was never in the business of breaking hearts. Enter Nice Girl TM. Nice Girl and I met in an online chat and became friends pretty quickly. We didn't have a lot in common, with her being a very upper middle class university student from up north, and me being a down-home, hard-working hillbilly that has not and probably never will attend college or university. Things were good for a while until she realized that I had another friend, we'll call her Nadia, who I really like a lot. I entertained romantic feelings for Nadia at one point, but it fizzled out quickly when I realized she didn't feel the same way, and I moved on with my life and we remained friends. That was when Nice Girl started finding excuses to talk about Nadia more and more, calling her a fat bitch every time she and I had a disagreement. Even if it had nothing to do with Nadia, she would always somehow bring it back to, "You're a pathetic loser who can't get a date with a land whale." I will say that Nice Girl was very fit, flat stomach, toned muscles, etc., and very proud of it. I think when she saw me being attracted to a more heavy-set woman over her, she couldn't handle it and felt the need to disparage her at every opportunity. Soon, Nice Girl began sending me extremely dirty photos, which I told her multiple times I wasn't interested in. She would try to coerce me into trading pictures with her by asking me if I'm gay or something. I explained that no, I'm not gay, and the truth is, I'm just not attracted to her. Then the crazy started. Nice Girl began finding reasons to pick fights, calling me a loser virgin and an incel before wrapping back around to her sending me unwelcome nudes. There was this one time where she was trying to come visit me, and when I declined, she said it was probably for the best and that she would probably, quote, molest me by grabbing me by the crotch and making me squirm. Needless to say, this was highly uncomfortable. It got so much worse when in the ensuing argument she sent me photos of my house on Google Maps, saying, "I know where you live." I can't remember if at this point I had told her what city I was from, as she had been reasonably normal up to this point, or if she worked out my address from watching a student film I showed her. I've had to blur out mailboxes and things before showing films online for this very reason. 2018 rolls around and I'm off to the army. I'm literally at the bus stop for basic training and she's texting me repeatedly not to go, even though it's something I've wanted to do my entire life. Basic was awesome, thanks for asking. I got buffer and skinnier than I've ever been, and I should have known this would make me Nice Girl bait. Sure enough, Nice Girl is texting me as soon as I'm out, with stuff like, "Hey handsome, I missed you," all while continuing to talk about her intimate engagements in extremely graphic detail. I told her again that that makes me uncomfortable, and she proceeded to whine that it's part of her identity, and if I can't accept her talking about intimate engagements 24/7, then I'm denying her identity. Meanwhile, she never lets me talk about guns, the army, or anything else I enjoy, because that's violent and brutish. There was one time that I was literally just talking about the transfer bar mechanism on a revolver and how it prevents the hammer from having direct contact with the round, thereby minimizing damage to the hammer and making it safer to carry and holster. Total nerd stuff. The way she reacted, you would think I was talking about the size hole it would put in a bad guy's chest. She actually referred to my 38 SPL sidearm as a killing machine, all the while making me feel like some sort of psychopath for my interest in mechanical functions. Finally, I got her to chill out and stop spamming me with nudes, and things were cool until we had an argument about abortion. She told me that I was racist for not supporting it wholesale, because unwanted pregnancies are a problem that primarily affect women of color. She then went on to explain that she thinks babies from broken homes shouldn't be born because they'll just grow up to be criminals. I pointed out that first off, she pretty much said that people of color all grow up to be criminals, and she's even more racist than she accused me of being, and Second, I grew up in a broken home, and she knows that. So she's basically saying that I, as well as 90% of my friends, should never have been born because we grew up poor. I told her that's really easy for a trust fund white rich girl to say. She completely freaked out at this and told me that maybe I shouldn't exist and I'm going to kill myself any day now. I struggle with severe depression and I've told her this, and that I clearly had no idea how to treat a lady. I muted her and she messaged me literally a week later saying, "Hey handsome, I miss you," before calling me daddy and saying that she's in love with me. I genuinely have no idea what to do about this girl. She may be crazy enough to hurt my family if I just block her outright. This is just some classic nice girl stuff. I love to see, I mean, I hate that you went through this, but it's interesting to see a case like this. My favorite thing is that she was so insecure about you liking a heavier girl that she just tried to tear down that person, and then also tried to brag about her sexual exploits in order to make you jealous, and it didn't work at all because you just weren't interested in her. Also, the whole, like, pro-choice, pro-life thing, like, I understand having that conversation, but saying that you're outright racist if you're pro-life, that seems like a bit of a stretch. I mean, maybe there's an argument for that, but she clearly didn't make it well here whatsoever. Future Q here, I almost forgot to mention the fact that she said that she would molest him if they met up. Jesus Christ. This woman is a legitimate predator, and I can't believe it slipped my mind in this commentary. This one comes from an anonymous subscriber, and this was sent in to CueSubs@gmail.com, CueSubs@gmail.com, if you want to send in your own story. I met this girl, let's call her Becky, on a role-playing site when I was 16. She and I immediately clicked, and it didn't take long before we started dating. I'm female and queer. The controlling behavior started immediately. I didn't find out until 4 years later, but she'd lied and was actually 6 years older than me, so when we began dating, I was 16 and she was 22. I should have been furious, but I was supportive and naively figured age was just a number. Our first fight was over me having the audacity to roleplay with a mutual friend without her. I'm assuming this is like a non-romantic roleplay, and it's because it's a role-playing site, so I'm assuming this was all just platonic roleplay, but obviously she was upset over it. I was a wreck, but that was only the beginning. She pressured me into dropping out of school, pretending it was because she was concerned about my depression, but she later admitted she just wanted to roleplay with me all day and not share me with school friends, who she made me think hated me. So this is an obvious sign of manipulation. She's just completely being isolated by Becky right now. I just wanted to point this out so that people can understand the warning signs. She broke up with me many times over a 10-year period. The first time she said she wasn't into girls, only to immediately get into a long-distance relationship with a girl in Canada. The other times were always just BS reasons. She would always break up with me just before I was due to visit, once everything had been finalized and I was paying entirely on my own. And even when we were broken up, I wasn't allowed to have any friends, even though when we broke up, she said, "You need to move on. We're not getting back together." The only friend she allowed was my gay best friend, since she saw him as a possible sperm donor. She convinced me to move to the other side of the country, where I had no friends or family, to go to university with her. I did so. She broke up with me 2 days before the move. She promised to transport me to school, the doctor, and do shopping together since I had no transport, but she immediately reneged, and my poor dad had to drive across the country to buy and bring me a car. Within 6 weeks, she told me she had to go home and left me stranded with a lease I couldn't afford, so I had to uproot my new life and return to my home state. I took her at her word about moving on, stupid me, and did manage to find a new relationship. I even eventually got engaged. Didn't work out though. I hid it from her because I knew she'd flip her lid. Eventually she found out and did the classic nice guy, nice girl things. "I can't believe you date someone else. We were destined to be together. I love you and nobody could ever love you like I do." And when that failed, she called me a stupid slut who didn't deserve her love. I offered to be friends, and she said, "I'm not going to waste my time with you unless we're in a relationship." She knew how attached I was to our roleplay world and essentially held it ransom in exchange for her love. Every time I tried to end the relationship, she'd immediately blow up my phone and pretend to be reasonable and open to change. It was always a lie. Thankfully, now I haven't spoken with her in over a year and a half, and I'm happy to say I'm I'm married and in a wonderful relationship with a great guy. Becky still frequently calls me from no caller ID numbers to try and trick me into answering. It worked once, but never again. I was so obsessed with pleasing her because I loved and feared her while we dated that I always turned down my friends and family to spend time with her, out of fear of her reaction. And I feel like I missed out on so much of my life, especially my 20s, because she monopolized my life so completely. I especially feel guilty for neglecting my family and friends. So at least this story has a happy ending, even though she robbed me of a large chunk of my life. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, even if you can't initially see it. So I feel like some of this story seems sort of far-fetched. I mean, the whole moving across the country thing, only to have your dad have to buy you a car, and then you move back 6 weeks later after, like, starting university and stuff like that. That seems pretty crazy, but I guess if you had the resources to do so, and your parents just didn't question any of it, yeah, that could have happened. But taking this all at face value, obviously Becky is an extremely manipulative person and found like the perfect target, and I feel like the whole being super into the roleplay world also contributed a lot to you staying around, because I feel like if you just exited that roleplay world and stepped out of any sort of community that Becky was involved in, it could have ended earlier. But obviously everything just works out the way that it does, and even though you did lose a chunk of your life, maybe you wouldn't have met your husband or whatever, and hopefully everything just worked out for the best. But this is an insane story, and I really hope that Becky just can't do this to anyone ever again. One last side note before we finish this up, I was just super interested in the idea of like a roleplay world. Let me know if you have any like roleplay stories. Like there was some strange person in your roleplay community that you couldn't avoid because you were so engrossed in the roleplay. Like, I don't know, those communities are super intriguing to me, so let me know if you have a story about something like that. Teespring.com/stores/QStar is where you can find the coolest clothing. See what I did there? I'll leave a link in the description in the comments for that. Also in the description, you can find all of my social media links, as well as the submissions email, which is CueSubs@gmail.com. That is the only place that I'm accepting submissions. I used to accept submissions on Twitter. I no longer do that because it's impossible to search through DMs on Twitter, so I've just got a bunch of dead messages in there. I'm sorry if you sent one in there. If you could copy and paste it and put it into an email, send it to CueSubs. I'll be more than happy to look at your post if it's something that I'm looking for. But anyway, skate on to the best of your abilities, guys. Make sure you're drinking more water, and I will see you very soon. I hope you're doing well and staying safe out there.